Hey, what's up? Welcome to another edition of The Mandatory. Thank you so much for rocking with us. If you already have subscribed to the show, thank you so much. If you haven't, click that subscribe button. Also, make sure to follow us on our social media channels. We're at The Mandatory TKO. Also, you can find us on the audio side. So remember, wherever you find any of your audio, if you got a couple of minutes, leave a rate and review. That always helps the show grow. And once again, we appreciate you rocking with us. This is an interactive show, so make sure to keep those comments coming because we will get to those comments. And today we got a lot on deck because obviously we're going to get into the Tyson Fury, Oleksandr Usyk preview, but there's also another banger on Friday, a great card as well. Emmanuel Navarrete and Denis Berinchek are going to be fighting. So we're going to get into that as well. But Bryan, before we do all of that, let's get into why we're kind of doing this preview, because we've been waiting for this fight for a minute. It got postponed because of a Tyson Fury cut, but Tyson Fury and Oleksandr Usyk, it's going to go down. Finally, we're going to get an undisputed heavyweight champ. This is the first time in a very, very long time. I think the last time it was Lennox Lewis, and I was like 10 years old or something like that. So it's been an extremely long time. It's great for boxing. But nonetheless, what are your thoughts heading into this fight, and how excited are you for it?
We've been looking forward to this fight for a long ass time. A couple of years at least. I think with Tyson Fury and Oleksandr Usyk, this should be a bigger deal than it is. I feel like it's not really getting as much mainstream attention as I expected. Maybe that'll heat up over the course of the week, but we haven't had an undisputed champion since 2000, and we're talking about Lennox Lewis being vacated or having to vacate, or rather being stripped actually of the WBA title because he didn't want to fight John Ruiz, and John Ruiz was boring as shit. So I don't know if you could blame him. So there's that element of it as well. But yeah, Tyson Fury, he's wanted this. Oleksandr Usyk has absolutely wanted this, and Oleksandr Usyk is already unified in the cruiserweight division. He was undisputed there. I think people are still sleeping on how technically sound he is, and some people think he got knocked out by Daniel Dubois last year. So both are kind of coming off questionable performances. You have Daniel Dubois one, and you also have Tyson Fury against Francis Ngannou, which we haven't saw since, which I continue to say I don't think he trained seriously for that fight. I legitimately don't think he gave a shit leading up to that fight and just kind of showed up, and he was bigger than normal. He's super lean now. I wonder what he's gonna weigh in at. He might be in the 250s like he was against Otto Wallin. So it's gonna be very interesting. But I think, man, I'm very excited for this. I just wish it was not in Saudi Arabia because the time difference and things of that
Mm.
nature, and just like I'd rather have big fights between dudes who are from Europe, be in Europe, or maybe even here where they're both known. But so be it. This is the way boxing is going now.
Yeah, it would have been pretty sick to have them at Wembley or something like that. Could you just imagine how great that would be? Sweet Caroline playing everywhere. That might happen
I
regardless in this fight. Which, yeah, by the way,
Yeah.
I like Boston fans love that, and every time I hear it, I just think of Boston. I think of the Bruins as a Canucks fan. I hate that. But nonetheless, I'm extremely excited for this fight because I feel like we've been wanting it for extremely long time. I felt like Tyson Fury was playing a bunch of games before Oleksandr Usyk wanted the fight, and now we're finally getting it. And like we mentioned, it's been an extremely long time since there's been an undisputed champ. I was just a kid the last time with Lennox Lewis. So the fact that these two guys are coming into this fight and they're going to give it their all. You talked about Tyson Fury and how he looks a lot leaner. I believe at some point he came in at like 300 pounds. Like, I don't know if it was 300 for Francis Ngannou, but he did not look like himself.
278 ish,
Pretty
basically.
close, pretty close to 300, right? So he's coming into this fight leaner. He looks good. And I think that's great for Tyson Fury because I think maybe a lot of people are looking at the Francis Ngannou fight and questioning him. I don't think you should. And then a lot of people look at Oleksandr Usyk and they're like, hey, is his chin a little bit sus as well? We know Fury has that power. But like you mentioned, Oleksandr Usyk, he cleaned out the cruiserweight division, right? He's extremely skilled. And we talk about him fighting a bigger guy. Listen, he beat Anthony Joshua twice. Anthony Joshua is also a very big puncher, despite the fact if you like Anthony Joshua or not. I believe he has the best heavyweight resume. So everyone can hate on AJ all they want, but to me, he has the best heavyweight resume. And these guys are going to get it on. Finally, we're getting this fight, and I think it's great for boxing. Now, Brian, let's get right into it because we were taking a look at the odds yesterday, and it seems like more money has now come in on Oleksandr Usyk just from yesterday. Let's get right into the fight. Tyson Fury is a minus 118 straight up on the money line, and Oleksandr Usyk is a minus 102. Your thoughts on the line and how it's moved within the last 24 hours?
Well, this line was actually flipped because Usyk was the favorite. So on this particular one, more money came in on Fury overnight, or at least since yesterday when I last checked. And there's another line with another prominent sportsbook where more money came in on Usyk, where Fury was the favorite, and it's gotten closer, and it's all over the place, and it's a legit 50-50 fight, which we don't get a lot of high profile 50-50 fights in this sport. So this is why this is like a fight of the year contender for me, and also one where it's like, as Hustle Man says in the comments, and please do leave comments because we're going to get to as many of them as we could over the course of this preview. But to me, this can be a stylistically just beautiful boxing match. It's not, I don't expect it to be a brawl that would shock me. I think it's going to be very tactical, a lot of counter punching, some level of aggression, some measure of aggression. Usyk trying to figure out the puzzle because Tyson Fury is just the combination of size, strength, and speed is unlike maybe anything we've seen in the heavyweight division, at least recently. It's definitely unlike it. It's what has given so many top flight heavyweights problems. And I think when he's at his best, he's better than everyone else in the heavyweight division. And I don't know how close it is. Oleksandr Usyk is going to have to survive the sort of strength disadvantage and the size disadvantage that he has. Um, and I think that's going to be interesting to figure out because he's clearly good enough, but Tyson Fury is 6'9" with a 7'1" reach. Oleksandr Usyk doesn't have that. He's 6'3". His reach is probably 6'5", 6'6", around there, at best. So how do you sort of combat that if you're not necessarily a power puncher either, is what I want to see if he figures it out. So it's going to be very, very fascinating. Like, as a boxing fan, as a purist, quote unquote, and as somebody who's been covering boxing for years, and as somebody who appreciates the science behind it. I don't care to see knockouts all the time. I could give a fuck less. There may be one in this fight, who knows? But I think it's going to be a great just boxing match, and I can't wait for that.
You know what? This is the true 50-50 fight, but every time I end up saying that, it turns out to not be a 50-50 fight as of
Mm,
late. So I'm kind
mhm.
of scared of saying that, but at the same time, I'm going to keep it real. I've been back and forth on who's going to win this fight because at some point, I don't really know, but I've had a pick in my mind for the entire time. The entire time, ever since there was talk about Tyson Fury and Oleksandr Usyk fighting, when Usyk came into the heavyweight division after clearing out the cruiserweight division, took care of Anthony Joshua twice. In my mind, I've had a pick the entire time, but I've been back and forth because I'm like, do I want to go with this pick? And I'm not going to lie to you, it's going to be a game time decision. I'm going to make my pick live on this show. I'm just going to go for it. It's going to be a game time decision because that's how back and forth I've been with this fight. Because we talk about Tyson Fury, we talk about the size advantage, we talk about the power and the speed. And then Oleksandr Usyk, listen, he might not have that power of Tyson Fury, but he breaks you down. He moves around the ring really well, and he is extremely skilled. So stylistically, this is an amazing matchup. And like Hustle Man said, let's go to, by the way, keep some comments coming, guys. I want to put this comment up. This might be an all-time classic and more competitive than people think. Both very capable of beating each other on any given night. And that's the thing. By the way, there is a two-way rematch clause. So these two guys are going to make a lot of money and they're probably going to do it again. They are going to do it again because why not? And we're going to get into all of those aspects of what it means if one of them wins because we know there's going to be a rematch. But Brian, why don't we just get right into it? When you take a look at the line, we talked about it. How are you betting this fight? And after all the anticipation, who do you have winning?
If you follow me on the Action Network app, I've already placed my bet, and I did it yesterday. I'm going with Tyson Fury by decision at plus 220. I can't believe I found it at plus 220. That was very, very interesting to me. It is probably not plus 220 anymore because the book that I found it at plus 220, he was an underdog yesterday and is now a slight favorite. So that's probably, it's still going to be plus money, but
On FanDuel, it's still plus 220 for Fury to win by decision. So
Jesus.
you can still get that right now. If you believe Tyson Fury is going to win by decision, plus 220, the odds there are great, tons of value.
I don't want to pick a knockout in this fight. I feel like if there is one, it could be late, but it would likely be Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury, I mean, he has been dropped 7 times in his career. Now, granted, 4 of them are from Deontay Wilder, who's maybe the hardest hitting heavyweight of my lifetime. And you also have one from Steve Cunningham, former cruiserweight champion. Is that something that Oleksandr Usyk could potentially exploit? But that was more of a flash knockdown, and Tyson Fury's recovery in general when he gets dropped is exceptional. Like we've seen him recover from devastating knockdowns, get back up, and box his ass off. So I've leaned that way. I also think a draw at plus 1400 is worth a look because I legitimately think that could happen. Because one, it could be a very close fight. Also, two, boxing shenanigans, just in case. And if there's going to be a rematch clause, having a 114 scorecard, like it's kind of makes sense. So I think draw plus 1400, something also worth looking at. But Tyson Fury has been my lean the entire time. I was not deterred by the Francis Ngannou performance because I just think that he came in and didn't give a shit, and he gives a shit about this fight clearly. So I'm backing him to win by decision at plus 220.
You know what? I really like the draw aspect, to be honest with you. I love it.
I
I'm
had a
gonna
feeling.
sprinkle. I'm gonna sprinkle on that. That's not actually my pick. I'm gonna go with the pick that I had in my mind since I've been envisioning this fight for almost over a year now. Like this has been in my mind for a very, very long time, kind of like how I had with Bud and Spence. And so, listen, the reason why I love this fight is they always say in boxing, styles make fight. And that's exactly how this fight is, right? Because Tyson Fury, we talk about how big he is. He's going to have the reach advantage, the height advantage, probably the weight advantage. We know that Oleksandr Usyk is the smaller guy, but Tyson Fury, he's got that speed and power. And I think the way he fights this fight is going to be the most interesting because if I'm Tyson Fury, I know Oleksandr Usyk is a great counterpuncher. He moves around the ring really well. And how am I going to fight this fight? Am I going to keep it at a distance? If I'm Tyson Fury, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to try to keep it at a distance because I don't want Oleksandr Usyk to continue to counter me every time. And so, because that's how Oleksandr Usyk is going to get his points, right? He's going to move around the ring really well. He's going to be counter punching you. He's going to be using his jab. He's really good at those things. Tyson Fury, though, has the speed and the power. The only thing that I question is he also is coming into this fight after having a cut, which is why it got postponed. We were supposed to get this fight in February, were we not? Yes, it was in
and
February.
and also in December, but he fucked around with Francis Ngannou, so that didn't end up materializing.
Yeah, so Tyson Fury, like, regardless of all of his antics and, I want 70-30 and all of this stuff with Oleksandr Usyk, it's all entertainment and he knows how to sell a fight. But I think the cut to me is interesting because I also believe that cut that he suffered against Otto Wallin, that's a cut. Like, once you get cut in a certain place, you might get cut again. I'm not saying the cut's going to have an impact on this fight. It could possibly, depending on what happens in this fight. At the same time, I'm taking a look at this and I'm like, man, Tyson Fury's been in some wars.
Hmm.
Some absolute wars. You talk about Deontay Wilder being the hardest puncher of our generation, essentially. He is. You can put him up there with like top 10 punchers of all time. That's how hard Deontay Wilder hits. And Tyson Fury was able to get through that. Like, he is one of the best heavyweights of this generation, but he's been in some wars. And then I think about Oleksandr Usyk, and this is not a play on this, but he's fighting for more than just his boxing legacy. He's fighting for a country that actually looks to him for hope. There's so much riding on this fight, and it means so much more than who's going to be undisputed, even though that's great for boxing fans. I think Oleksandr Usyk is going to be fighting this fight in a different way where Tyson Fury is also going to have to make adjustments, right? Because Oleksandr Usyk is going to be trying to close the gap. And Tyson Fury is going to be trying to use his distance because why wouldn't he? He's the bigger guy. He's going to be using his speed, using his power. But what Oleksandr Usyk does is he breaks you down round by round, and he's going to be moving around the ring a lot. I want to see how Tyson Fury's conditioning is going to be because I know Oleksandr Usyk's conditioning is going to be on point. Not questioning Fury and his conditioning, but I expect this fight to go the distance. I do think there's going to be a knockdown in this fight. I don't know if both guys are going to be knocked down, but I do believe that's a possibility. But I just feel like Oleksandr Usyk, the way he moves around the ring, he's already fought a big guy in Anthony Joshua, beat him twice, already fought a bigger puncher as well in Anthony Joshua because we know how heavy-handed AJ is as well. I'm actually going to roll with Oleksandr Usyk to win by decision at plus 185, and I'm taking him in this fight to win. I just think his skill and the way he moves around the ring is essentially going to cause some problems for Tyson Fury when it comes to conditioning later on in the rounds. And Oleksandr Usyk is going to be able to counterpunch him as well. I think this was an extremely tough fight for me to pick, but I got to roll with Usyk because I've been thinking in my head for over a year now that he would win this fight. And it's no disrespect to Tyson Fury. I just think that Oleksandr Usyk, everything that he's fighting for, and it's more than just boxing, that plays into it as well. This is going to be an extremely good fight. And I like the fact, Brian, that we're on opposite ends of this. And I knew you were
For
going
the
to pick
first
Fury.
time in a while, too.
Yeah.
Like, we've
And
been agreeing on a bunch of fights lately.
yeah, it's true. And our records are actually pretty good as well. And I think this is a 50-50 fight where that's okay, though. It's good that we're going separate ways. And I think if you take a look at the line there, more money came in on Usyk, by the way, in the last 24 hours. But I think people are kind of torn on who they're going to pick.
I think, look, if Oleksandr Usyk's going to win this fight, he's going to win by decision. I rewatched Anthony Joshua, both fights, somewhat recently within the last few months. And I just think Tyson Fury is just better than Anthony Joshua. Also faster, probably much faster, but faster when he gives a shit. I think a lot of this is that too. And I think with me, Tyson Fury is he's just a different animal when he's at his best. But also, like, yeah, the wars do matter. He has more mileage, pro mileage, 7 career knockdowns. I actually did bet over half a knockdown in this fight, in either direction. Even money, minus 110. I think that Tyson Fury could get dropped in this fight. I think Oleksandr Usyk could get dropped in this fight. But I do think it's going to go all 12 rounds. And what I'll get to that comment in a second. And I just think it's gonna be a great boxing match. I do wonder how Tyson Fury handles Oleksandr Usyk's volume because I think Oleksandr Usyk understands he's going to need to win this fight with volume. He's going to need to give Tyson Fury angles and use that foot speed, change levels, and all those different things.
But I think that's what he's really good at.
Yeah,
Is the work rate, is the level changes, is the footwork. Like that's all of his best characteristics in a fight where he's going to need to use that. I think Oleksandr Usyk just has to be himself in this fight.
but
That's all he has to do.
If Tyson Fury is able to find his range very early, which he's great at
He's going to
doing,
use it. He's going to use his jab really well.
he'll make it difficult for Oleksandr Usyk to do those things. Like that's why I think this is going to be so tactical because we know how it looks if either guy wins. If Oleksandr Usyk's going to win, it's going to be a volume based performance. It's going to be angles. It's going to be a lot like what Lomachenko does, quite frankly. Even when Lomachenko has a size disadvantage, it's going to be getting in, getting out with just beautiful footwork. The level changes as we mentioned. And some measure of counterpunching, like baiting Tyson Fury into different things, like baiting Tyson Fury into, yeah, I'm a southpaw, so throw me your straight right hand so I could like slip under, hit you to the body, move here to the left, like do all those different things. And then with Tyson Fury, we know that if he finds his range early and if he's able to keep Usyk from doing those things and keep him at a distance, jabbing from a safe distance, landing that straight right hand, and hitting him to the body so that he limits the movement as the fight goes along. Like if Tyson Fury is able to invest in the body very early in this fight, I wonder how much movement we're going to see from Oleksandr Usyk when he needs to be moving in rounds 7 through 12, in particular in the second half of the fight. So whoever gets the upper hand early, that's going to be a fascinating, just sort of chess match for me. And again, reasons why I think this could be a draw at plus 1400. Like that's something that's just worth a sprinkle because
Yeah.
of how close this can be. And the odds really reflect that. Like they've been sort of all over the place, but really in that same range where people are telling you, hey, this is a 50-50 fight.
And I do want to also mention that if you're betting on Tyson Fury, and a lot of people talk about Oleksandr Usyk's skill, which is what I'm talking about right now, because I do believe that he's also his counter punching, the way that he moves. I think that's going to cause problems for Tyson Fury in the ring, because I expect him to not only do that in the beginning of the fight, but later on in the fight, because I do believe it is conditioning. But Tyson Fury also beat Klitschko with skill. People forget that, right? Everyone talks about his power and his speed, but he also has the skill asset as well. Tyson Fury is very skilled and he's got that speed factor as well. So I do think if he is able to establish the jab early on and control the distance, that we're going to try to see Usyk try to close that gap. But Usyk is so skilled and he's so good at that I think he's going to be able to do it. So, yeah, let's get to some comments, because there's some really good ones here. And there's a great question that we're going to get to as well. First, we have to get to, I think, the best comment so far. Ryan Hong, a friend of the show. Let's get this up here. I think me and Brian clicked it exactly at the same time. Is it coming up? I'll let you do it, Brian.
I assume you're talking about this comment where he asked
Yeah.
about my shirt. Is it disco night? No. These are supposed to be like two animals or whatever. This shirt is admittedly old. I kind of just threw some on and came up here. Didn't mean for it to be distracting, but yeah, I mean, and it also fits nicely, if I must say. So there's that.
I like that he said it was like a disco shirt. I love that. Ryan, thank you for joining us. Good friend of the show. TJ, we need to see more of the skilled brawler version than the boxing version of Tyson. Take notes from the Chisora fight, not the AJ one. That's a good question. But like I mentioned, like we've seen Tyson Fury brawl. We've seen him beat Klitschko by skill. Like we've seen him do everything in the ring. For me, it's the miles on the legs. It's the cut before the fight. It's the conditioning, even though he looks really good sparring right now. But everybody looks good like sparring and hitting the bag. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's what it's for. It's to put out the video and be like, oh my God, he looks good right now. Like that's like a mind thing. You know, when you're playing basketball and you're like talking smack to your opponent to get in there, it's the exact same thing. Like, let me put out this video. Brian, your thoughts on needing to see more of the brawler version of Tyson in this one?
Well, it's probably a pathway to matching, if not exceeding, the volume that Oleksandr Usyk is going to put forward. Like if Oleksandr Usyk is going to have volume in the manner of which we're talking about, like yeah, Tyson Fury being sort of the skilled brawler version of himself actually makes more sense. Noticeably, people remember Oleksandr Usyk and Derek Chisora. Like there were rounds Derek Chisora actually won in that fight. Going to the commenter's point. And it wasn't like Tyson Fury, where Tyson Fury just kind of carried Derek Chisora for several rounds, basically the entire fight before stopping him late when he felt like it. Probably because like he cares for him and all those different things. But yeah, I mean, I like the comment a lot, because if he can match that volume, I think he's in good shape, so long as he also doesn't eat some counters while inside briefly and going through those exchanges with Alexander Usyk.
Yeah, let's get to some more comments here. This is a good one from a friend of the show, Hustle Man. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Is Usyk pound for pound number one if he beats Fury? Depends how you have your pound for pound
Jesus.
list and where you have Fury and where you have Usyk. I actually have Usyk ahead of Tyson Fury on my pound for pound list right now. If he beats Tyson Fury, listen, boxing, the heavyweight division matters. Like the heavyweight division brings out celebrities and like all eyes are always on the heavyweight division. I just
Not
don't know
this
if I
time because the
I
fight's
just
gonna
don't
be in
know.
Saudi Arabia, but
Yeah.
anyway.
I just don't know if like right now I have Inoue, and Brian and I were talking about this before we hopped on here about him and Bud. And Inoue fights like 2-3 times a year, and he does it in style, and he's like cleaning out entire divisions. So it's hard for me to put anyone above Inoue until Bud fights in August. But it's legit going to be Inoue, Bud, and then Fury or Usyk for me, depending on who wins. So what about you, Brian?
I still have Crawford 1 in a way 1A, 2, but I like saying 1A because it's disrespectful to put either of those guys at 2, it feels like. But listen, that's a real conversation. Especially because Crawford has not been very active. We've talked about this, and this is, I think, partially why Ring Magazine put him at number 2, is because Terrence Crawford hasn't fought twice in a year since 2019. That was the year he fought Amir Khan and Mean Machine. Since then, there's been one fight a year. So I think Usyk, he's gonna have an interesting case depending on how he gets this done too.
Sorry, guys, it's really early here on the West Coast. So these clicks and the pauses are all for a reason. But TJ, thank you so much for rocking with the show this morning. We appreciate you. Fury also has a better style for Usyk than AJ. Styles make fights. Yeah, they definitely do. All around, I think Tyson Fury is a better boxer than Anthony Joshua. Like, no disrespect to AJ, but I do believe still that Anthony Joshua has the best heavyweight resume in the heavyweight division. Like, I don't think anyone's taken that away from him. If you can name someone else who has a better resume that's active than Anthony Joshua, I'll wait. But good luck.
You don't think Fury does?
I think Anthony Joshua's is better than Tyson Fury. Easily. AJ has the best heavyweight resume. Yes, easily. Go take a look at Anthony Joshua's wins. We can do it right now. I mean, this is not about Anthony Joshua. Maybe we'll wait for Anthony Joshua
does it
preview.
matter if Tyson Fury, like, I think he would whoop Anthony Joshua's ass if they fought still.
I think that's okay. So we should probably get into this before we get into Navarrete and Barinchik. But when the rematches happen, because there is going to be a rematch clause either way, there is. Does Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua, do we finally get that fight after? Regardless of who wins? It, like, if Usyk wins, whatever. If Fury wins, whatever. Like, are we going to possibly finally get Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua after these Usyk fights? Because then I feel like Fury could just sail off into the sunset once he does that.
I mean, hopefully, but there's a lot of fights in this heavyweight division that have taken longer to get to than they should have. Wilder and AJ being the main one. Like, that should have happened in 2017, 2018, 20 whatever. Like, who cares? To the resume point, I mean, look, AJ does have a really good resume. He's fought a lot of dudes, but he has losses on his record also. So I mean, like, you can have a great resume, but he has losses to Andy Ruiz, where that was like the biggest boxing upset in I don't know how many fucking years, but that's one of the biggest upsets ever. Yeah.
But he avenged it. He avenged that loss.
Who was a replacement opponent because Jarrell Miller couldn't stop doing steroids. Like, he just had needles in his ass and was just not he was just not letting up at that point.
But he avenged that loss. And like I always say on this show, I don't care if you have losses. My favorite boxers have losses except for Andre Ward and Mayweather. Everyone else has losses. All of my favorite boxers have losses. It's the fact of you getting into the ring and doing it. Because if Tyson Fury fought all of those guys that Anthony Joshua has fight, maybe he'd have some losses too. Like, I'm just saying the resume itself speaks for itself.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Like, Anthony Joshua, I agree. Like, the losses shouldn't matter as much as they do. But I mean, that's a Mayweather thing. Like, he kind of ruined that shit for a lot of people. You know, where his whole thing was trying to be undefeated. Now a lot of people want to be undefeated. But Tyson Fury actually is undefeated. Like, so if we're comparing resumes, like, I think that matters too. He beat Deontay Wilder 2, arguably 3 times, you know, and that's a name that Anthony Joshua, again, for whatever business reasons there have been, doesn't have on his resume. When he does get if he does get Deontay Wilder,
it's like a different Deontay Wilder now, though.
That's what I'm saying. That's what
you know what I mean?
If you get Fury got the best version of Deontay Wilder. Anthony Joshua, if he gets Deontay Wilder, though, is not going to get that. Tyson Fury also beat a better Klitschko, who was not coming off a layoff, who was at his peak and was the heavyweight champion, and he made Vladimir Klitschko look stupid, honestly. Like, in that fight, he frustrated the shit out of him. Like, he has some really good wins on his resume too. I think the Usyk one would help. Obviously, I think Usyk, he's built a pretty quality resume as well, considering that he tore through the cruiserweight division, which isn't as bad as people think. People just, for whatever reason, don't care about cruiserweight boxing. But yeah, I mean, look, Anthony Joshua, he has more names
until Jake Paul gets into the cruiserweight division. I'm sure. Yeah. That's what he's aiming for. But yeah,
I think it's an interesting conversation. And I think Anthony Joshua should fight Tyson Fury regardless of the result. So part of me is kind of like, man, if Usyk wins both times, does he fight Anthony Joshua a third time? Like,
No, I don't think that fight happens, to be honest with you. I mean, it's a possibility, but I think fans would rather see Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua because that fight almost happened, and then Tyson Fury started playing games. Like I think there's too many games for me with Tyson Fury, and I think that's the fight we all want to see. And then obviously Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua. I think that's still a fight people would pay to see. The thing is that Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua would be one of the biggest fights of this generation. It would be because Anthony Joshua looks really good right now. I think he's put it all together. And let's get to TJ's comment here.
I don't know about that. I
Now,
mean, he
listen, he
looks
looks
really
good,
good, but
yo. He
like,
looks good.
like he's also in his mid-30s. Like I think all of these guys are like just one.
Isn't Usyk like 36? Like Usyk's old too.
He was an amateur forever.
Yeah, and was killing it as an amateur, but like
Yeah.
still like that matters, right? TJ, AJ is a way better pure boxer than Fury, and
I don't
TJ
agree.
agrees with me.
I
TJ agrees
don't
with me.
agree.
AJ does have the best resume in
I
boxing.
don't
I mean,
agree. I think it's recency bias because we saw what Anthony Joshua, we've seen what he's done lately, but I don't think he's a way better pure boxer than Tyson Fury. I just
but do you
don't.
believe he has the best resume in the heavyweight division?
Again, I'm like, okay, great. You have a resume that includes losses to Oleksandr Usyk and Andy. How about this? If Tyson Fury beats Oleksandr Usyk this weekend, then no. The answer is no. Like Anthony Joshua does not have a better resume than him. Like Oleksandr Usyk dominated Anthony Joshua the first time. The second time was a little closer, but he clearly won that fight to me. And Anthony Joshua,
Usyk, yeah.
Usyk, and Anthony Joshua threw a hissy fit after the fight and thought that he won the fight. It was a split decision, whatever. I don't know what the one judge saw. Like Usyk clearly won that fight.
He was emotional, okay? Sometimes that happens. But this is not about AJ. Let's take to this. Hustle man. I just hope the judges score the fight fairly. Tired of seeing these crazy scorecards. Please don't cheat us out in this fight. Who knows with boxing? I'm sure that it will be a close fight nonetheless. But I do believe that, I mean, listen, it's not in North America, it's not in Europe, right? So there is a chance that this could be scored really fairly. And they're probably going to have.
Or not.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I mean, we'll have to wait
Here's
and
the
see.
thing. This could be a trilogy situation also. Like, because what happens if let's say Tyson Fury wins this weekend, and let's say they do the rematch in like November, and Usyk wins, or December, and it's like Riyadh season 3.0, whatever the fuck they call it, right? And they do the rematch in late in the year. Next year they're just gonna, if Usyk wins that, and next year they're just gonna have it again. Like they're just gonna do it a third time, and then by that point, I think we actually might be talking about somebody retiring because Anthony Joshua's probably not going to get this fight if he's going to be waiting around for that long.
I can't wait for Jake Paul and Tyson Fury. That one's going to be a banger because because it's bound to happen at some point.
The other Tyson better beat Jake Paul, by the way.
Yes, that's very, very true. And obviously a big Mike Tyson fan. So he's almost like 60 years old though. I'm like scared for him in this fight. I don't know why it's happening.
No,
like I'm kind of sad about him getting into the ring with Jake Paul because Jake Paul just posted a picture where he's like super swole. And I'm like, man, poor Mike Tyson. Like, he's like my mom's age. Like, I'm just like, like what's going on here? Like, this is ridiculous. But final thoughts, leave your comments because we're going to move on to another banger that's happening on Saturday night that I'm really excited for. And Bryan, any final thoughts before we move away from Oleksandr Usyk and Tyson Fury?
Just can't wait. And the whole card is interesting too. You have Joe Cordina, you have Frank Sanchez, you have Sergey Kovalev. You have a lot of interesting guys and fights on this card.
The Frank Sanchez fight is probably the most interesting to me because I want to see how he fights in that fight.
And we're planning on doing a post-fight show. So
yes,
stick around for that. The time we'll see, but it'll be immediately after the fight goes off. That's all that matters. The fight, because the fight may start at like 4, 5, 6, whatever. It's
on the East Coast,
on the East Coast, yeah. Saudi time is similar to time in Britain, so it'll be like that style of fight. So, and hopefully they put on a good show because like I think the crowds over there could be better. I sound like I'm shitting on them over. I'm not, but I'm like, listen, if you're gonna come into the sport and put up money for all these big fights, I feel like you should do a better job. just all around with presentation and just it just I don't know, just doesn't make a lot of sense. Kovalev by decision plus 500 is a lock. I'm not betting on that fight, Brian. But I appreciate I appreciate the enthusiasm. I am not. I don't even remember who he's fighting, if I'm being honest.
By the way, nerd friend of the show leaves lots of comments on our videos. Gypsy King, let's go. Rolling with Tyson Fury for Usyk and Fury. Drop your comments. Keep them coming. We will get to them. Brian, another banger though on Saturday that I'm really excited for. It's going to be a full day of boxing. We've got Emmanuel Navarrete taking on Dennis Berinchik, and this fight is so good. It's going to be absolutely entertaining. Your thoughts on this fight, and how are you betting this one?
I haven't bet on it yet. I'm probably gonna take Manuel Navarrete by knockout, or I mean, listen, he's not a gimme. You know what I mean? Like he's very entertaining, but goddamn, he's a wild card sometimes. Like, he had a draw with Robson Conceição in fucking November of last year, which I remember watching that fight. And by the time we get to round 8, I'm like, is he gonna lose? Like, I'm watching this and I'm watching him like he's just a wild card, man. Obviously Oscar Valdez is where he put it all together seemingly, but even Liam Wilson dropped him. Like Emmanuel Navarrete is such a strange fighter. And oh, by the way, he's going to be going for a world title in a 4th weight class amid all this, like somehow gets a title shot after in a lightweight division. I guess at some point we'll probably get Lomachenko versus Shakur Stevenson. The winner's going to take on Navarrete if he even wins this fight, or like there's going to be some sort of top ranked shit before, because Tank is over here. Now I'm just going off script, but Tank is over here saying like, because someone asked him, "Oh, fight Lomachenko," and he's like, "Oh, after Frank, he's next," and I'm like, I texted you. I'm like, you don't actually think Tank is gonna fight Lomachenko now?
And I was like, yo, Tank and Loma. Like I was like loving it.
I think Tank talks a lot of shit. I don't think he's like actually gonna fight Lomachenko, Shakur, any of those dudes, unless like there's real business. Like, I don't
I
know if
hope he does though, because I think that's a great fight. Like I think Tank and Loma, that's the fight I want to see. I feel like if Loma fights Shakur, the scorecards are gonna have Shakur win. And Loma's gonna get robbed. I'm being honest with you. Like that's what I think is gonna happen. The performance that Lomachenko put on against Kambosos, and no disrespect, like me and Brian talked about this, and we knew that's how it was gonna go. And that's just
I bet on the decision. I did not bet on the knockout, which almost happened because Kambosos is tough, but goddamn.
and the odds were good. 7 through 12 was a plus 500. I sprinkled on that, but I also bet the decision. But the way that he broke down Kambosos, I would love to see Loma versus Tank. And we're off script, so I'm just saying, I hope Tank fights Loma. I hope he fights Shakur. I hope Tank fights somebody where people will give him a lot more credit, because I still believe he's the best lightweight in the world. But Brian, so you're taking Emmanuel Navarrete by knockout for this one?
I think so. But it's more of a lean than a straight up pick. I also think he could win this by decision, to Hustle Man's point. Like, Barancik is tough. And Navarrete, again, is a wild card who it's just ridiculous. Luis Porto, can we boycott Shakur? Boring ass fights, man, needs to be blackballed. I do wonder how, like, stylistically, that's the most interesting matchup at lightweight for me, is Shakur versus Tank. But like, you name me all the times Tank fought somebody from Top Rank. Like,
it's a business thing. I think that's a pay-per-view though, Tank and Shakur. Anything Tank, like Tank brings out the pay-per-view numbers. But can we boycott Shakur? I want to see Shakur Stevenson fight a better, more entertaining fight. I don't want it to be a snooze fest. But sometimes you might get that with a Shakur Stevenson fight. But I still think that he's arguably one of the best in the division. Let's just be honest here.
Here's the thing. He just fought before Edwin De Los Santos. The Shirishiro Yoshino fight was actually very entertaining, and he knocked him out. Like, it was actually like probably his most explosive performance at this level.
But it just depends on how Shakur wants to fight.
Right.
Because the Jamel Herring fight was entertaining as hell. Right. I love that fight. And a lot of people had taken Jamel at that time because Jamel was kind of like on the rise and he was fighting well. And I thought Shakur performed great in that fight, but then we get a dud. It's like it's for with Shakur, it's like we get a dud, we get a good fight, we get a dud, we get a good fight. It's
Oscar
like
Valdez, how'd you feel about that performance?
I was upset because I'm a big Valdez fan, as you know, but I thought Shakur fought well in that fight. And I mean, it's also Valdez, so you're gonna get a good fight. Was it a good fight because of Shakur, or was it a good fight because of Valdez? Like, let's be serious here, right? Like, it's styles make fights, and I think Shakur, like, that was a good fight.
And now in July, Shakur Stevenson is going to fight Artem Haratunian.
Mm.
How do you pronounce that? I'm remembering from the Frank
I'm not
Martin
even gonna
fight.
try. I don't want to be
It's
disrespectful.
just forgive me, Artem. I will call you Artem. He had a fight with Frank Martin last year that was very interesting because a lot of people thought Frank Martin actually got a bullshit decision, which leads to the Tank fight. And Artem is going to fight Shakur Stevenson. I'll tell you what, if people didn't think he got robbed, he wouldn't be getting the Shakur fight. I was surprised that was a unanimous decision. I was in Montreal, like I was on vacation watching this fight, and I was like, how the fuck did Frank Martin get a unanimous decision here?"
Yeah, no, he shouldn't have won that fight. Going to our friend again, Ryan Hong. My shoe has more personality than Shakur. It's not worth talking about. So you know what? Let me get to my pick because we went totally off topic. We went on a Shakur Stevenson tangent.
And a Tank
Emmanuel,
one.
yeah, Emmanuel Navarrete and Dennis Berinchik, but there's reasons for it, right? Because we're talking about Navarrete. I think this fight is going to be an absolute banger, and I don't think it's going to be that easy for Emmanuel Navarrete. He's so weird. He just fights really weird, and he has been dropped before, but I do believe that he's one of the guys in the division that you could probably look at him and be like, he's the boogeyman. Because not only can he take hits, he wants to take hits and he wants to be unconventional. And you know, the work rate is going to be there as well. With Dennis Berinchik, he's older. I think he's like 36 years old now, but he is still a guy that's going to come forward. He's going to throw a lot of combos. I think he has a nasty left hook. This one is going to be a lot of volume in this fight. Expect this one to be absolute fireworks. Now, Berinchik is still undefeated, if I'm not mistaken.
18-0, 9 knockouts.
Yeah, so he has a 50% knockout rate. I don't think he's going to knock out Emmanuel Navarrete, but Navarrete gets so careless defensively at times where I know Berinchik is going to have some moments in this fight. However, I think Emmanuel Navarrete, I don't think the knockout's going to happen in this one. If it does, I won't be surprised. But I think Berinchik is tough. I think the style of the way that he fights is going to cause some problems for Navarrete because he's going to be taking a lot of hits as well. I think Navarrete wins by decision, and it's a plus 110 right now on FanDuel if you want to bet some good odds there. You could probably make a parlay because the card for this is absolutely amazing. I think Navarrete, this is going to be an extremely tough fight for him, and he shouldn't sleep on someone like Berinchik. Berinchik's tough. He hasn't lost yet. The way he moves around the ring, sometimes I feel like he headhunts a little bit too much, but Navarrete doesn't care about that anyways. He'll take the hits. But I think Navarrete wins on the scorecards at plus 110. And if he does knock out Berinchik, like I won't be surprised, but I think Berinchik is tough. Like this is a very, very tough fight. And this is arguably one of Navarrete's toughest fights to date.
No, it is. And to me, like as we talk it out, like I'm probably not gonna bet on this fight at all. Like Emmanuel Navarrete is hard to trust. Berinchik does have a couple quality wins. He beat Ivan Mendy. He beat Anthony Yiget. Like I think
he didn't look that great in the Yiget fight. Like there was times in that fight where I'm like, ooh, he doesn't look that good. But yeah, he does have that win.
I thought he did earn the victory at the very least. Because I remember watching it, like it was a close fight, to your point. Also avenging a loss because Yiget beat his brother by stoppage, I believe in the tournament. What the fuck was that called that they used to do it? Like, and then now you in a way won it. Usyk won it. World Series of Boxing. Was that what it was? It wasn't Super Six. That was super middleweights. They should do that again, by the way. Like these tournaments, like I love tournaments in boxing, but they don't do them enough. Berinchik is probably worth a sprinkle at plus 600 to win on points. If he wins, it may likely be on points. I do think Emmanuel Navarrete is somebody. World Boxing Super Series. I knew I was butchering it. Thanks, Ryan. Those tournaments are great. And then COVID came and then they stopped doing them. They were supposed to do one for women's super featherweight that they announced like after COVID or during, and they just never got around to it. And I don't know what the state of that is, but in that tournament, Ivan Berinchik lost to Anthony Yiggett. Anthony Yiggett ended up losing to his brother. So I think it's going to be an interesting fight, but I'm probably not going to bet on it because I would lean Navarrete to win. He's like minus 500 or greater on the money line. And I don't have the confidence to pick a method of victory for him because he's such a wild card. And also, I could see him losing this fight. So, if anything, I may actually go to Baranchyk and be like, hey, plus 600 on points, very, very small, like quarter unit or whatever the case may be, and just call it a day.
Yeah, and Barishik, he doesn't have the power, but like his work rate, the way he moves around the ring, his skill set, he's going to cause some problems for Navarrete. And I believe right now on FanDuel, if you're going to take him straight up on the money line, he's a plus 420. But I do think if he wins, it'll be on points. I also think this could be very close on the scorecards. It could be like 115, 113 one way. It could be a split decision. So I do think this is going to be a very good fight. By the way, let us know how you're going to be betting these fights this weekend. Drop your comments below. And thank you so much for rocking with us this morning. We do have the post-fight show after Tyson Fury and Oleksandr Usyk. So make sure to join us, rock with us. We'll be talking about the fight. And we hope the judges get it right. But we know it's going to be one of the best fights of the year. So make sure to rock with us after the fight. Bryan, any final thoughts before we get up and out of here?
Yeah, that ESPN card, don't sleep on that one. This card that we're talking about, Navarrete and Baranchyk, like it's going to be a good one. Richard Torres Jr. has Brandon Moore. That's undefeated versus undefeated. Two heavyweight prospects. I love that shit. That reminds me of like Showbox days, which are in the past now, unfortunately. Friday night fights, etc. Speaking of, ESPN actually did announce recently that they're doing a Friday like a card sort of in the style that they're doing these UFC cards or whatever the case may be. So maybe that'll have some sort of Friday night fight feel, even though they've done Friday cards.
I love
Um,
Friday night fights. They're my
and
favorite.
Emiliano Vargas, another prospect that I'm very much intrigued by. He's going to be on this card as well. So
Yeah, gotta love all the Vargas brothers and of course their dad. Always been a fan of him as well. You're muted, Bryan.
I agree with the
You pulled the
comment, by the way.
Shantelle. You
Yeah, I did.
muted.
Yeah, I did. It was 47 minutes in. I'm over here stumbling and bumbling. Shout out to Clyde Frazier. Hustle Man says that the Saudis should basically put up money for the World Boxing Super Series again. And I totally agree. You want to do a great thing for the sport? Like, yeah, actually, I would love to see that. Just don't have all the fights over there. Like, spread them around, you know?
Yeah, I would hope that we get more fights. I love the fact that we're getting the Bud card in LA. That's going to be great for West Coast fans. But by the way, if you like the content, hit that like and subscribe button. Also follow us on our social media channels. We're at TheMandatory TKO. Thank you so much to everyone that rocked with us this morning. Remember, a post-fight show, Tyson Fury, Oleksandr Usyk. Make sure to join us. And thank you to everyone who rocked out with us this morning. We'll be back soon with some more content.